All right, Danny, let's hear your testimony while the rest of you listen, and we'll learn by hearing others' testimonies.
Okay. A lot of people think that if you're born into a Christian family that you're automatically a Christian. And I learned the truth at an early age. Because my parents were committed to God and His teachings, they taught me all about the Bible. And at the age of 10, I came to the realization that there is an absolute right and wrong. Even as an older child, I came to the point where I knew that when I chose wrong, it was sin. And sin is what separated me from God. The Bible calls separation from God hell. And no matter how good I tried to be, only one thing could save me from this hell and make good my relationship with God. This one thing I did. With the help of a preacher, I prayed a prayer that changed my whole life. In that prayer, I stated that I truly believed that Jesus was God's Son. His mom was really a virgin, and when Jesus died on the cross, He came back to life. I acknowledged that Jesus' death and coming back to life was done to pay the price for my wrongs, my sins. It was a free gift, and I was now acting to accept it. I asked God to help me turn away from doing sins because I knew I couldn't do it on my own strength. And finally, I committed to do my best to do what the Bible says and make it my guide for life. I knew this meant that I wasn't in control anymore, but He was and still is. I know that those steps sound almost too simple, but according to the Bible, that's the way God planned it. The plan isn't that you pray the prayer and then boom, that's it, you're not going to hell. His plan was and is for a personal, loving, ongoing relationship with me. Because of what Jesus did on the cross, I was no longer separated from God. Praying that prayer made me a child of God. Since that time, I prayed the prayer. I haven't been a perfect angel. I have messed up and hurt God. But just like a true, loving Father, He forgives me when I ask, and He still loves me. I'm betting my life that what God said in His Word is true, and when I die, I will be with Him in heaven. To me, that is real peace. That gives me hope. Does this make sense to you? Have you ever experienced anything like this before?
Okay, thank you, Danny. All right, let's look at this for just a minute as I've tried to make some notes here. The first sentence does pretty much get their attention because even though some think if you grow up in a Christian family, it's automatic you're going to be a Christian. You found out this early. I'm not sure what the age 10 had to do about that, whether that was a time of conversion or realization of right and wrong. Maybe you could clarify that. I'm not sure you even need to talk about the ages or when I was an older child, but just say as I became older, I realized that sin was separation from God. And then you mentioned hell as separation from God, but you didn't mention the literal hell, so in a sense, someone might really question, really what does he believe about hell? So you don't want to leave a question about that. You then moved on to say that you prayed to receive Christ. I never did hear why. What was it that motivated? Was it the realization of right and wrong or what? I wasn't quite sure the events, whatever event caused you then to do that. You prayed to receive Christ. The statement about Christ being born of a virgin, of course, is true, and it's good. It might be that would be something someone would want to argue with you about. So it might be just as well not to say that particular phrase unless it's really meaningful to you. So I think you're on your way there if you can just sharpen it up just a little bit for next week. All right, I'm glad to have an opportunity to hear your testimony after you revised it during this last week. And again, I want to say we're not trying to change your testimony. We're not just leaving things out to be untruthful. What we're trying to do is how do you communicate to a non-Christian a salvation testimony? That's what we're focusing on. And so any suggestions I give you are just to help you to be able to communicate as you begin to learn it and share it in your own way. So Danny, if you could start today, why don't you read or give your testimony, and we'll see if we have any suggestions.
Okay. A lot of people think that if you're born into a Christian family that you're automatically a Christian, and I discovered that's not true. My parents were devoted Christians, and they taught me all about the Bible, and eventually I came to the realization that there is an absolute right and wrong. I came to the point where I knew that when I chose wrong, it was sin, and God hates sin, and sin was like a barrier that separated me from God. The Bible says that all who sin deserve death and hell, and I knew I didn't want to go to hell. The Bible also says that no matter how good I am, only one thing can help me from going to hell and make good my relationship with God for eternity. Now you may be thinking what I was, and that was, number one, I have sin in my life, I deserve death and hell, and I can't be good enough to get into heaven. So now what? Well, God provided a way. The Bible says that having a relationship with Jesus was the only way to get right with God and be assured of going to heaven when I died. With the help of a friend, I prayed a prayer that changed my whole life. In the prayer, I stated that I truly believed that Jesus was God's Son, and when Jesus died on the cross, he came back to life. I acknowledged that Jesus' death and coming back to life was done to pay the price for my wrongs, my sins. Life after death in heaven is a free gift, and I was now acting to accept it. I asked God to help me turn from doing sins because I knew I couldn't do it on my own strength. And finally, I committed to do my best to do what the Bible says and make it my guide for life. I knew that this meant I wasn't in control anymore, but He was and still is. Now, in doing this and praying this simple prayer, Jesus was now breaking down that barrier between me and God, and I will never be separated from God again. I became a Christian, a person who's trying to be Christ-like. Now, I know this prayer may sound almost too simple, but according to the Bible, that's the way God planned it. His plan isn't that you just pray the prayer and boom, that's it, you're not going to hell. That's just step one. His plan actually, his desire, is to have a loving, personal, ongoing relationship with me and with everyone. Praying that prayer made me a child of God. He's like my Father. Now, just because I prayed that prayer didn't mean I never sinned again. Believe me, I have messed up and hurt God and other people. But just like a true loving Father, He forgives me when I ask. He still loves me, and I'm betting my life that what God says in His Word, the Bible, is true, and that when I die, I will be with Him in heaven. And to me, that's real peace of mind. That's what gives me hope and a purpose in life. Now, does any of this make sense to you, or have you ever experienced anything like this before?
Well, Danny, that makes real sense to me. I think you've done an excellent job. In fact, I don't really have much to say. I think most everything you said was plus. You've improved it in a number of ways, which I'll need not to go into. You might look, as you look down, you say, this prayer is almost too simple. You maybe talk about this plan is almost too simple, or this way is almost too simple. It almost sounds like it was the prayer that saved you, although it was the way you were saved. But if you might make that a little stronger by doing that. But I think that's just excellent. You ended well. Thank you. You're going to be ready for the workshop.